Welcome to another episode of Hot Topics. My name is Dr. Anthony Youn, and you're listening to Dr. Youn Podcast. We're going to cover a lot of the hottest topics in cosmetic surgery today. I do this about once a month with a guest, and today we're going to cover some really interesting topics. Estrogen face cream. I swear I get asked this all the time. Should you use estrogen face cream after or if you're going through menopause or after menopause? We're going to talk a little bit about Simone Biles' experience with Botox, about microcurrent treatments like the NuFace, and a lot more. So I am joined once again this week by my good friend, Dr. Emily Levin. She is a board-certified dermatologist practicing here in Detroit. Now, if you listened to our last Hot Topics, she was my guest on it, and we chatted about a number of cool topics. So if you haven't heard that, go back. It's about a month ago. I think you'll enjoy listening to it. Thanks again for joining me for this episode.
Thanks for having me.
So for those of our listeners who haven't heard of you yet, maybe they didn't listen to the last episode or watch it, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your practice.
Yeah. So I am a board certified dermatologist. I've been practicing for about 20 years, and I have a private practice in the suburbs of Detroit. And I practice all types of different dermatology. I do mostly skin cancer screenings, full body screenings. I do some cosmetic dermatology, surgical dermatology. I have a few partners that specialize in Mohs surgery, which is a skin cancer surgery. And then we also have a medical spa attached to our practice as well.
So what is your favorite part of being a dermatologist? Like let's say, oh, I love helping people, but as far as like the treatments, what are your favorite treatments to do, or what segment of dermatology do you enjoy the most?
Yeah, that's a good question because there's really different parts of it. One of my favorite things about dermatology is how tangible it is, just how you can see it. And you can, if anything I'm doing, I can tell if it's working, if it's not working. Your results are immediate and you can see what is happening. And I love that about dermatology. That's literally one of my favorite things. I also love my relationships with my patients. It's a field where you can really develop long-term relationships with patients as opposed to emergency medicine or other fields where you can't do that. So I really treasure my long-term relationships with my patients and catching up with them. And I sometimes get stuck in a room talking travel and kids and all those things with my patients. But my favorite part about the actual dermatology, I almost went into plastic surgery. It was actually something I loved doing. So I love the surgical part and the cosmetic part, and anything where I'm doing something procedural, I really get excited. I love it.
Anything interesting going on since we last chatted? You try any new treatments or devices or anything like that?
Not yet. I'm considering. I mentioned a little bit about threads, and I'm really looking into trying some new threads again, just because that's something that I really would love to incorporate into my practice. But I've tried it before. They didn't last. We'll see.
So one of the things that we did actually last week, my wife, my daughter, and I were in Los Angeles. I don't know if you knew that.
I don't think I
we
did
were in
know
LA.
That. I did not know that.
Because my daughter was checking out a school out there. And while we were there, we ended up going to Erewhon. Have you heard of Erewhon?
I have not.
So Erewhon is the kind of like the grocery store in the LA area. There's, 6 locations. The store is absolutely beautiful, and it's like insanely expensive though. And they're really famous because they have this thing called the Hailey Bieber smoothie. And if you're on social media, you've probably heard of the Hailey Bieber smoothie. It's $19.
Oh my goodness.
But when you look at it, it's like a skin healthy smoothie. So it's got let me look it up here. I can tell you exactly what it has in it, because if you go on like social media, it's like so popular. And I'll tell you exactly what's in it. Here we go.
We're already trying to make it home.
Erewhon Hailey Bieber's Strawberry Glaze Skin Smoothie. And its ingredients are organic almond milk, organic banana, organic strawberries, organic avocado, organic dates, organic maple syrup, vital proteins, vanilla collagen, vanilla stevia, sea moss, organic coconut cream, and Driscoll's organic strawberry glaze. And here, this is just a quick picture of it.
Sounds delicious.
It was real. It's bright pink and white. So it's kind of like girly, but I was like, I got to try this thing. So I got that. And then my daughter got Sabrina Carpenter's got a smoothie there too. And the Sabrina Carpenter smoothie, I tell you, that thing was $23.
Come on.
For the Sabrina Carpenter smoothie.
It must have flexible.
And hers was purple. Yeah. So if you get a chance, and it's not going to break your budget, I encourage any of you, if you're in the LA area, check out an Erewhon. They are absolutely beautiful grocery stores. And then the pre-prepared food and stuff like that is incredible, but it is expensive.
Save up before you go.
Yeah, once in a lifetime. And then even Gary Brecka, he's got a smoothie there too. My wife actually ordered it, and then somehow the order didn't go through, so we never ended up getting it. But the other two were great.
Well, the question is, did your skin glow after?
I
glowing.
fully believe that, what you eat makes a profound impact on your skin.
Agreed.
So I think there's a lot of skin healthy parts of it. I'm a huge fan of collagen. So you've got a lot of antioxidants in it.
Yep.
Stevia, I think if you're going to have some type of a sweetener, then I think that's the best one out there.
Yeah.
I'm also lactose intolerant. So, almond milk is great for me. So, I think it's great.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's going to be healthy for your skin when it's like bright pink, but it was definitely very, very good. So.
Curious about the sugar content, but that's...
Sugar, we won't look at that.
We won't look at that. We'll
Sure. I close my eyes.
ignore that part since our skin is glowing.
All right. So the first story I'd like to cover today, and this is something I don't, are you getting asked about estrogen cream?
All the
You've got to
time.
be.
All the time.
Now, 1 year ago, did anybody ask you about estrogen
No.
cream? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, because it's a hot topic. That's why. But
And-
no, I knew people have been asking me lately all the time.
Yeah, it's something that literally a year ago, same thing. Nobody ever asked me about. Then all of a sudden now everybody's talking about it. I think what's going on, and I credit my friend, Dr. Mary Claire Haver. She's a gynecologist and menopause specialist out in Galveston. She wrote a book. I think it's now 10 weeks or something on the New York Times bestseller list called The New Menopause. And this is the book for women who've gone through menopause. And it really dispels all of the bad information that has been out there about menopause for decades. And I think that she almost single-handedly, and I know she would deny this as it's just her, has really pushed this information out into the mainstream about how women for decades have been undertreated. They have been gaslit, really. And there has been very little information on menopause and how to treat menopause symptoms. And so I think that's why you're hearing it more, is because people are saying, geez, I've always been afraid of estrogen with menopause. I always thought I was going to get cancer from it if I take it. And now they're realizing that original study that was done, 20 years ago, whatever, is completely flawed. And so now people are re-looking at it and saying, wow, hormone replacement therapy actually can be potentially very helpful. For those of you who are listening or watching and are really curious about this, I did do a podcast with Dr. Mary Claire Haver a couple of months ago. So just go on back and you should be able to find it. It's a lot of just great information. So anyways, let me just there's an article here. I just want a quick read. I think it was from She Knows, and then we'll chat a little bit about this. So while estrogen cream is well known as an effective treatment for vaginal dryness that can come with menopause, their hormone can also help with skin on your face. So what is estrogen face cream? A true estrogen face cream is a compounded medication, meaning it needs to be mixed up by a pharmacist or a doctor. There's no FDA-approved estrogen medication for your face. These medications typically use estriol, which is a low-potency estrogen compared to estradiol, which is typically taken as an oral medication. Estrogen contributes to elastin and gives the skin a tighter feel and appearance, and declining estrogen levels are linked with premature skin aging and dryness. Among other things, estrogen creams claim to do the following: increase the production of collagen, increase skin firmness, decrease the depth of wrinkles, make skin more elastic, and retain moisture. One study of 59 women found that those who used estrogen face creams saw improvements in their skin elasticity and firmness after 6 months. Their pore size also shrank by 61 to 100%. Another study followed 15 women who had been through menopause and were given a 0.01% estrogen cream. After 4 months, the researchers found that they had thicker skin and increased levels of collagen. So what do you tell your patients when they say, hey, Dr. Levin, what do you think about estrogen cream? I'm perimenopausal or I'm postmenopausal. What have you been telling them?
So I have this conversation with a lot of the new creams that come out, right? The new ingredients. What about this? What about that? What about, we talked about snail mucin last time. And, there's always a new hot ingredient that comes out. Estrogen has had studied, proven benefits for many things, obviously, and topically for vaginal dryness. And women have been treated like that for a long time. So I tell patients a couple things. One, never hurts to try, but always get clearance from your doctor first, because if they have a high risk for breast cancer, ovarian, any of those things, you still just want to be sure if there's any mild systemic absorption that they are not at risk for those things. But I always tell people, I'll tell you what, when I see the proven results that it does something, I will start carrying it in my office or trying it myself. But it never hurts to try. Try it. Let me know. I love to tell patients, give it a try. Try an estrogen cream. See if you notice a difference. And let me know, because then I'll try some and see if it works.
Have any of them come back to you and given you?
I haven't heard yet.
Not yet?
I did have one that joked that she was going to take her vaginal estrogen cream and mix it into her moisturizer every day and try it. I said, go for it.
Yeah, that's the thing. So there's a friend of mine, Dr. Sean Tassone, and he's a board certified gynecologist. He is on the holistic kind of integrative side. And And he was actually saying, don't do it, because his feeling is that if you are already on, let's say, hormone replacement therapy, that's all your skin needs. You don't need to add the topical to it. I don't know. That's what he's saying. He's not a skin expert. He's a gynecologist. So he's an expert with women's hormones and all that. But yeah, I mean, I think, one thing to keep in mind when you look at this is that yes, there's estriol and estradiol. Estradiol is the stronger, more potent estrogen. You don't necessarily want that in a cream, because if that goes systemic, meaning it goes through your skin and into your bloodstream, then you could have effects from that you may not be aware of, or that may be potentially harmful depending on your medical history. But most of them should be made with estriol. And then keep in mind, anytime something is compounded, meaning a pharmacy creates that for you, they mix it for you, it may be different than if another pharmacy does it. So there are some commercially available estrogen creams, but you do have to get a prescription for it. Like, I'm not sure how they do it. Like Muesli has got one. Muesli's cream, $66 for a 2-month supply, contains estradiol, vitamin C, hyaluronic acid, and aloe. And then there's another one by Alloy. That one contains estradiol. They both contain estradiol, which I don't know, that concerns me. There is a tendency, I'm not sure if you've been seeing it, for these telemedicine skincare type of companies. There's the one I'd like for hers, for Hims.
There's Curology and those,
and I don't know. What do you think about those? Because I'm assuming that they do some type of a consultation with either a licensed physician or a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant. And then they get essentially prescription products, whether it's for hair or here for skin. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are that, if you have some type of mild acne or mild, anti-aging desires to start a regimen of some kind, I mean, there's no replacement for going and developing a relationship with a physician or a physician assistant or whatever in person. There's no replacement for that, in my opinion. I do often see people that have tried those things from Curology or some of these online based subscription, skincare companies. And they often come in and they say, it helps a little but not enough, which is very similar to over the counter. And they are actually prescription medications or tretinoins and, the strengths that are, topical, spironolactone and things like that are really wonderful treatments for acne. But I don't know. I've never done one of them. I don't know what the follow-up is. I don't know if they're really looking into the health history of the patient and what, and how are they following up? I don't know that. But I do often see patients that have started those. They're not doing enough, so they come to see me.
Yeah, the concern I would have too with some of these is that they're, obviously all of our, if you're in private practice, it's a for-profit business. I mean, you can't do it and lose money. Otherwise, why would you do it? You need to make a living. But these are companies that are doing it obviously to make money. And in the end, you and I, we go into medicine to help people. And it is financially beneficial for us, especially with the fields that we're in. But, these are companies where their bottom line is the number one thing. And, do you have patients who are, let's say, calling Muesli and talking with a physician, and do they ever say no to these patients saying, hey, you know what, that's probably not a good idea for you. Maybe you should see a dermatologist, or, hey, you know what, instead of paying this money for this, maybe get a prescription that your insurance will cover for something else. Like, do they have those patients' best interests in mind?
That's a great question.
When your boss is going to be
sell.
Maybe it's a corporation, maybe it's a privately owned company, but what is their MO here? Like, why are they doing it?
Right. Excellent question.
So that's interesting. So you're saying, hey, I would, reasonable to try estrogen creams. At this point, the jury is still out. It looks like there are a couple of these small studies that show that it may help, but the studies are pretty small. One of 59 women, one of only 15. So I think that what we need is more data to find that out, and we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, even one of the creams you mentioned, Tony, there were other ingredients in there, hyaluronic acid and things that also would be improving their skin. So the question is it the estrogen itself? And so, to be continued.
Well, and then the question comes, it's when you go through menopause, you lose, collagen in your skin afterwards, but it's a whole body. So do you douse yourself in estrogen?
Here's Johnny.
Do you literally, does it go from just on your face to now you've got body cream and you're lathering up your whole body with estrogen cream? Where do we stop with it?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
Me
well,
neither.
next story is about one of my daughter's favorite athletes, Simone Biles. She killed it at the Olympics this year in Paris. So over the weekend, the gymnastics star posted a Get Ready With Me TikTok in which she shared how she gets camera ready for the 2024 Paris Olympics. I have a funny story for you guys. So for my 27th birthday, I got Botox, like baby Botox. Just in my T-zone, Biles said, referring to a lighter version of the traditional treatment often used to prevent wrinkles. And I did not like it, so I haven't got it again. One of her eyebrows would start to rise involuntarily from it. And it would randomly do that, Biles said. It happened often enough that Biles said her teammates would point out when it happened during practice. They'd be like, Simone, your eyebrow's doing it again. And I'm like, I feel it. And I couldn't get it back down, Biles recalled, laughing. She noted that her rogue eyebrow would eventually go back down to its normal position about 20 seconds later, but it was enough for her to swear off Botox. Thankfully, she now has full control over her facial movements again. Now I can do all the facials, so I'm not doing that again, she concluded. For now, she's not doing it again, but she's only 27.
Wait till the deep wrinkles develop.
So first question I have for you, Dr. Emily Levin, is what is baby Botox? Do you ever use that term, baby Botox?
Occasionally. And I really only use it on someone that says to me, I mean, it's a layman's term, it's a term that you use when people are scared of Botox, don't want to get, don't want to look frozen. And while we know as the practitioners, we're not going to make someone look unnatural. That's our best. That's our whole goal, is to make them look their best natural selves. But this is such an interesting, there's so many misconceptions around Botox.
Yeah.
People, and in this particular scenario, people come in all the time. Can you lift my eyebrow with Botox? I just want a little tiny bit, a baby amount so you can lift. Botox doesn't lift. We know that. It relaxes.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do with where you place it and how much you place, how many units. So the baby Botox situation, if someone says, I'm really scared, I don't want to look frozen, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do a baby amount of Botox for you. I'm probably going to use the same amount of units I would use no matter what, but I tell them I'm going to go light and make sure that I'm not using very much so that.
So what would be like a light amount of Botox, let's say in the frown lines, the glabella, the 11 lines between the brows, would you say is a baby Botox amount?
8 to 12 units, I would say, is a baby amount. But are you effectively treating the muscles? Oftentimes they come back a few weeks later, a month later, and say it didn't do anything because you're using a baby amount. You have to use the amount of units that effectively treats the muscles to get some desired result. Mm-hmm. And that's a big misconception,
So what do you think happened to Simone Biles with this? Like, why is her eyebrow going all like kind of doing its own thing? Yeah.
I think because she was actually undertreated a little bit. So what happens is, and again, you need to go to someone that's really, experienced in this. And, I do Botox in my own face. I'm not ashamed to admit that. And
you inject yourself?
I do inject myself.
Dang.
Yeah, I do. I hold my thumb to steady and then I press,
you don't trust
the
your
plunger
injectors?
I do, but it's just convenience.
Dang.
At the end of my day, I'll be like, oh, I'm kind of looking a little wrinkly. I think I need some Botox. And I'll just go in my office and just do it myself. I plunge with my pinky finger. I've perfected it.
With your pinky finger?
Do my own fillers too, Tony.
Oh.
Most of them, not all. Not my temples or my cheeks, but my lips.
I found myself, and it was probably April of 2020. I was in this office by myself, and I realized that we had an old vial of Botox because, my office closed. It was like March 14th or something, 2020. Mm-hmm. And it was literally like mid-April. And I find this vial of Botox sitting in our fridge, and I'm like, dang. These vials of Botox literally cost us $650. And they're only good for a very short period of time. So I'm like, this thing's been sitting here for a month and nobody is around because this is COVID, so the office is closed. And I thought, I'm not going to waste this vial of Botox. So that was the first time I injected myself. And
it's kind of fun.
I still liked it. And then I did one where I actually I did a TikTok where I injected it while I was lip syncing to a song. And that was really difficult.
That's unique. I love it. I posted on my social media myself injecting because my staff will walk in my office and be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, wait, we got to film this because they find it fascinating.
Good for you. Yeah, I could not filler though, man. That I could.
Yeah, my
Botox
lips. I do
is
my
so tight. Oh, that's even. Oh,
I don't know. I just
don't
enjoy
know
it.
How you do that?
But I think she was undertreated here. I think I think what happened was the placement of the Botox was such where they didn't place it in an area. And, I always tell people 2 weeks it settles in, come back if it's uneven. Hers was uneven. She needed a little more to release and relax that muscle. Had she just gone back 2 weeks later, they probably would have fixed that for her. And then she would have really liked her Botox.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's what it is. And we always tell, I think the area that you always have to be careful of is the forehead. Whenever you're injecting the forehead, I always tell patients, everybody's forehead is different. It's based off the shape of your brows. You know, if you've got a very horizontal brow, you can get a nice little arch from it. If you've got a really arched brow, it can overarch it.
For sure.
And then in which case you want to bring it down. So it really, you have to, whenever you do the forehead, you really have to tailor it to the individual patient's anatomy. Like you can't just cookie cutter it on and do the same thing on everybody. It's just not going to work.
It is an art, not a science. I mean, there's a little science to it. There's
I feel
definitely,
like
but
certain areas, like, the frown lines, you can do it mostly the same in most people and they're going to get this, but it's the forehead, I feel. And people who are new to Botox, if you're going to try Botox for the first time, I would encourage you to stay away from the forehead. If you're at all nervous, just stick with, the frown lines between the brows or the crow's feet, because that, you're going to get a more reliable result. And if you're at all worried, it's not going to change your look too much. It's just going to relax those muscles, relax those wrinkles, smooth them out, but not necessarily change so much how you look.
It doesn't. It's much more subtle than people think. It really is. And it wears off. If you don't like it, it wears off. You don't have to do it again. But if you go to the right person that you're communicating with you and, provider is asking you what you're looking for, and there's an open communication there instead of just going ahead and doing something without asking you what you're looking for, then that's critical.
What neurotoxin do you prefer?
So that's a good one. We carry 3 in my office right now. We carry Botox, Dysport, and Jeuveau. There's several on the market, Xeomin, Daxxify, all those. I would say Dysport is my favorite. I really like Dysport. My staff loves Dysport. My patients seem to really like Dysport.
Why do you like Dysport over the other ones at this point?
It kicks in the quickest. It definitely takes effect the fastest. So people kind of see those results right away. And then I have patients, it doesn't spread as much as some of the others. I get less spread from that. I feel like I can be real exact with the Dysport. I do still really like Botox. I like Jeuveau. I still like Xeomin. And I like Daxxify. I've tried them all. Daxxify made me feel very heavy in my own forehead. And I didn't like that. That's the one that supposedly lasts longer than all of the others. I didn't seem to find that was the case, but it made me feel particularly heavy in my face when I did it. Same amount that I've done with the others. But I don't know, do you prefer one over the other?
So we carry Botox, Dysport, and we carry Daxxify. My impression of this, and you inject more Botox than I do, is being a surgeon, I don't, I'm not injecting all day, although I have 4 injectors. 4 injectors here, and they inject all day. But so I find that Botox gets the most. If you want to target wrinkles and get, and just really like obliterate them, then Botox I think is most effective, is what I've seen. Dysport, I feel, gives a bit of a softer look, where my impression, and when I've had it myself, is that I believe it's the opposite. I find that it spreads maybe a touch more. And so that you get a little more of a softer result from it, but so it's not quite as aggressive in some ways as Botox. And some people like that, some people don't. Some people are like, no, I really like having those wrinkles gone. Whereas with Dysport, I find that you could still sometimes get a little movement. It's just a little softer, I feel. And maybe, it's just kind of, a subjective analysis. I'm actually an investor in Evolus, the company that makes Jeuveau. And I saw the early studies. The early studies looked really good. I invested in a company called Strathspey Crown many, many years ago. And they were the originators. They had got the rights to Jeuveau and all this stuff way back before I even had a name. And the studies looked really good. And then when it came in the office and we used it, patients didn't seem to like it.
Didn't love it.
No. And so, and I don't think that I'm still an investor in the company, but I don't think they like me because I don't buy it anymore. So we just didn't find it lasted as long as we had hoped.
My honest opinion, I really find, because I do a lot of injecting, and I really find that they're all so similar. I mean, if there are differences, they're subtle.
They're so tiny.
It's the same Botox A particle, and it's just that protein that's attached. It's a little different.
Some patients, they'll say, oh, Botox works faster. Other patients say, that Dysport works faster for them. So I agree. I think it's all very personal, and I 100% agree. I think the differences are so subtle.
So subtle. And some patients will say, do whatever you want on me, whatever's on special today or whatever's because I see no difference. And others say, I only want this one. This is the only one that works well on me. And that's different products.
And sometimes I find that people have been using Botox for years and it just doesn't last as long. So then we switch them to Dysport and like, oh, this is working better for them. And so I'm glad we have all these options.
I agree.
I like Dax as well. That was the last one I had done and it did seem to last longer for me. And it did actually, Daxxify does kick in a little faster in general from what I've seen than, let's say, Botox. But once again, I think everybody's just kind of different.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's very, very subtle differences, if any.
So another thing I get asked about all the time is microcurrent. So let's talk a little bit. There's an article about the NuFace that I want to go over. So How does a NuFace work? The NuFace Trinity Plus is an FDA-cleared facial toning device that uses microcurrent technology to help lift, contour, and tighten the face, giving a more toned and contoured look, at least according to their website. The device works by emitting a low-level electrical wave that's supposed to mimic the body's electromagnetic field, or bioelectrical field, to help smooth and strengthen facial muscles, stimulate collagen production, reduce fine lines and wrinkles, and even promote lymphatic drainage. One study found that microcurrent technology used for 20 minutes for 30 consecutive sessions was actually effective at reducing wrinkles around the forehead area. So in this article, the person actually tried NuFace and gave her experience. So while I noticed a slight improvement in the tightness of the skin, especially below my cheeks, I didn't notice a massive difference after my first. So this is her first NuFace treatment. My face did feel a little sore afterwards, especially around my cheeks and jawline, and everything just felt a little off for the next hour or so. So I kept using the device daily. NuFace recommends using it 5 days a week for the first 2 months, then switching to 2 to 3 days for maintenance. But the odd sensations convinced me to stop using the device after a few days. Well, after going back and using it, she decided that she actually liked the NuFace. I've had the device for a few months now, and I have definitely noticed an improvement in my face when I'm using it. I'm a little less puffy, my cheeks are more defined, and I like the idea of giving my facial muscles a mini workout a few times a week. So microcurrent technology, the NuFace is the most popular one. I have one right here called the Zip Halo, and I don't have any relationship with the company other than I think they DM'd me on Instagram or something and asked if I wanted to try it. And this is the Zip Halo. This also is a microcurrent device. And so you put basically some conducting gel on your skin, and then you plug this in, and it basically creates those electrical impulses, and supposed to do it several times a week. So what are your thoughts, Emily, on microcurrent devices?
I've tried it before. I've actually tried. I was at a conference once and somebody was doing a facial, like a microcurrent facial. And it feels a little stingy and a little kind of zappy. And I thought, honestly, it really helped for that day. Like I finished the treatment and I'm like, okay, I feel a little lifted and a little tighter and just a little smoother. And the next day I didn't feel like I saw any difference whatsoever. So, it wasn't something I incorporated into my practice. Do I think they're harmful? I don't think there's anything too deep about them or anything, it's going to harm any of the tissue or the nerves or anything like that. Do I think they maybe give you some quick, immediate results for a little bit of tightening, a little bit of swelling, maybe a little lymphatic drainage? Sure. Is it going to be a long lasting result? Probably not. That's my honest opinion about them. But at the same time, for the short term, going out that night and you want to look your best and, you do a little microcurrent treatment. It gives you a little boost. Gives you a little boost. That's how I felt when I experienced it myself. We don't do it in my office. Have you tried it before? I
haven't tried it. I have researched it. And interestingly enough, there are almost no studies on it, at all. If you look up microcurrent technology, microcurrent for facial rejuvenation, there's nothing. So it doesn't mean it doesn't work. There's literally no studies, which is shocking because the NuFace has been around for a long time. Yeah. I think, when I look at it, it's okay, what is the mode? What's the mechanism? How does this work if it works? Right. And, so we know that we have smooth and skeletal muscles. And, you always think about skeletal muscles, which are the muscles that create the facial expressions. Are these devices stimulating those muscles? I don't think so, because then if you put them on your face, you'd be all making these weird faces. And that I think would be very disturbing for people. So I'm assuming it's not necessarily stimulating your skeletal muscles, but maybe smooth muscles. But where are the smooth muscles? I mean, it's the same thing, I think, when you're talking about, let's say, injecting Botox into the hands and things like that for sweating and stuff like that. I mean, some of that, I think actually, let me describe that better. When, one of the things we do is we'll inject Botox very superficially into the skin as a way to improve pore size. It's called the Gold-Filtox facial. Yep. That appears to help with facial sweating and stuff like that. And I don't know if some of that has to do with smooth muscles. It's hard to say, but I think that whole question for me with microcurrent is what exactly are we stimulating here?
Scientifically, what is actually happening?
Are there tiny smooth muscles underneath the surface that it's stimulating that way? Is it truly the skeletal muscles that we're doing? Now there are new treatments, you may have heard of M-Face. M-Face is from the company that does M-Sculpt.
Oh yeah. Yes, I have heard of this. Where they put the patches on that stimulate your muscles. Yep.
And they say that can help with this. It's I feel like it's the same thing.
Same thing as this, but isn't it sort of the opposite of Botox? Aren't we trying to relax the facial muscles that are causing the wrinkles in between them? So there's a little bit of a contradiction there to me.
I think that that's the big question with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that it's
don't
they
either.
talk with like NuFace and there's another one. I think another company has a device that is a comparator to NuFace. I don't know if it's Cutera or Luminous one. I think it's Luminous has a device that's similar.
Like a muscle stimulatory
Yeah, it's a
device,
muscle stimulating device
Mhm.
because Emsculpt, they made it BTL. I keep thinking BTS, but
Right. It's right. Or BLT, like a
Yeah.
BTS, the group.
That's the company that makes the Emsculpt, and
Right.
they're all about stimulating muscles.
Yep.
And so they're like, oh, let's do it on the face. And then they're claim that that's going to be like a non-surgical facelift and all that type of stuff. But in the end, like the question is, what muscles are we stimulating? Are there smooth muscles there that we don't really know about or that we don't really study? Is it truly skeletal muscles? What are we doing there? And I think that the answer is still out there. Like when I've done research, like nobody really answers. They just
Right.
kind of say like what in this article says, to smooth and strengthen facial muscles. What muscles?
Right. And if it's muscular, or is there more going on? Is there elastin or collagen? Because really, as we age, we lose elastin and collagen, right? Elasticity and some of that collagen. So, and that subcutaneous fatty tissue, under the skin fat. So, which we're replacing with other things. Is this really going to stimulate those things? Has anyone done a biopsy on the skin before and after use to see?
No, because there's no studies. Because I looked, there are no studies.
There you go. So until it's proven,
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing. I think I agree with you. I think there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that seems to work. A lot of videos of people like, look, my face looks better.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you. I don't think it's harmful. There just doesn't appear to be science to support it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it doesn't work. I don't think studies have really been done. And I would love to learn like what the true mechanism is. It's just, it seems kind of foo-foo, like, I don't know. So interesting. So, my feeling with it is, hey, you know what? If you want to try it and you may find that you see some improvement with it, I would love to figure out exactly what the mechanism is. And maybe I'm just
maybe we should do a
ignorant
study,
of it.
Tony.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do a study. I have many people that would probably volunteer to try it.
But I feel like it's the same thing with the NuFace. Like I don't know. I'm a skeptic with stuff like that.
I am too.
I just don't know that it's going to be worth the money for the patients to pay that.
Yeah, I agree. I tend to be a skeptic as well about things.
So this is a very disturbing story and something that I have never heard, thank God, of any of my patients doing. Newly released, basically the headline is body cam footage shows arrest of mom accused of leaving son, 3 years old, alone while she gets plastic surgery. Newly released body cam footage shows the moment a Florida woman was arrested after allegedly leaving her 3-year-old son by himself in a vacation rental while she went and got plastic surgery. WSVN reports the boy's mother was seen leaving their Airbnb at 10:12 a.m. before the boy later exited the same unit at 1:13 p.m. At 4 p.m., he was found sleeping on a neighbor's doorstep and police were called. Investigators say he was alone for around 6 hours. Renteria, the mom, was later found at a surgery center a few miles away, reported WSVN, where she was placed into handcuffs while her head was still wrapped, presumably from whatever work she had done inside. She allegedly told police she told a friend to watch her son for her, though he denied ever being told to take care of the child. Renteria was charged with child neglect. She was released from jail on June 28th on $1,000 bond. Her trial is set for December 2nd. So this mom left her boy in their Airbnb for 6 hours where she had facial surgery. At 6 hours, you got to be having like major stuff. Like it must have been a facelift. If you're going to be gone that long, you're not just doing your eyelids for 6 hours that you're gone. And she would have been there longer because it was 6 hours he was by himself. And then they found her at the surgery center.
Disturbing.
Have you ever heard of anything like this? It's crazy.
Crazy. That's some serious body dysmorphic disorder that someone needs to leave their own.
We both have high school age kids now, but we vacationed with our children back in the day. Have you ever left your kids like at your vacation rental or a hotel room and then like left for a while?
Never. Never. That is so incredibly disturbing. I can't even.
I cannot
touch on that.
fathom that. I'm glad that they found her, and I'm glad that.
Me too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So
my patients bring their kids, to their treatments. They're like, "Mommy's getting Botox today," and
So how do you feel about that?
So that's a good question. I for a long time, I really believe in being very open and honest if you explain things in an age appropriate way, right? But when I was younger and I would come home, when my kids were younger and they were toddlers or more, younger, older childhood, early teens, when they were much more impressionable, I think, about body image, I would come home with bruises on my face from the work I was doing at my own office with, fillers and injections and Botox and things. And I would just tell them that I had a little allergic reaction from something I tried at work. I did lie.
You lied?
I told a little white lie. Just to save my children's body self-esteem. But as they got older, and when I felt like, especially my daughter, but my son, I have two boys and a girl, and I'm very open and honest with them. And when it's funny, patients bring their kids. Sometimes, and I'm not talking kids that are like infants and carriers. I'm talking about kids that like can understand and watch. And I kind of, at the way that the mom explains or my patient explains it to their kid is the most important part of it. And to see, the mom doing it and doing what she needs to do to make herself feel better, or the dad, excuse me, sorry, Botox is a real thing. Botox is a real thing. You're right.
Scrotox as well.
Oh,
right?
goodness.
Right? Scrotox
that
too?
I don't do.
Okay.
Don't call me for Scrotox. Call Tony. But yeah, a funny story about that is that I remember I was at a family function and I inject one of my cousins, who brings her daughter all the time. And her daughter, who was 5 years old at the time, came running up to me at a Hanukkah party and said, "Oh, you do my mom's Botox and make her look so good." And it was like all the people around were like, HIPAA violation. But, I didn't say it, but it was really cute and funny. And I don't mind it when people bring their kids, as long as our kids are, kids that run around the room and try to grab the needles. That's a problem. But I don't mind it as long as they're explaining it. And I try to explain it in an age appropriate way. And, being open and honest with your kids, I think is important. Not leaving them in an Airbnb for 6 hours to go get your face fixed.
We see that all the time too, where parents bring their kids in. And I think it's tough because, the kids watching an actual medical procedure, I think back when I started my practice, before we had social media was quite as big as it is now, kids didn't have exposure to it, but now it's freaking everywhere. And so they're going to get exposed to it to some extent. And it's like, trying to control the narrative to make it, as healthy obviously as possible for them is
really
most important.
Point.
So I think that it's tough. How would you feel if your kids saw you injecting yourself? Would that still be okay?
Yeah, I think it would be. I think
you'd be like, look how tough mom is.
Yes,
Dad
exactly.
couldn't tolerate this.
Yes. So, we are like, suck it up, buttercup, when the kids get hurt and stub their toes. And I'm like, watch what I do. I wouldn't mind them watching me at all. I wouldn't watch them. My kids have never been needle phobic because they know what I do. And I've always shown them things that, that I do. But I think that's tough parenting. Love parenting.
I get my injections done, and I don't do it as regularly as I probably should, just because I know I'm so busy, from my employees, although I have on a few occasions injected myself. I used to, with my wife, will inject her in our kitchen. She I don't want to go to your office. You just bring it home. And then I would do that. I don't recommend that in general. My kitchen's very clean, but still. But now lately she just will come in sometimes, just get it done here because I'm just like.
Well, honestly, if you take that one step further, Tony, do people ever ask you to do Botox parties in the past? Like, people used to ask me to do Botox parties, and I did some, but I don't
did
like
you?
being, I did, but I stopped after a while because doing it in someone's home, and I need to have my medical supplies near me, my lighting, and God forbid something happen. Not that anything really can with Botox, but nonetheless, with fillers and things, it's not safe. It's just safer to do it in your office where you.
I think you can do it safely in a setting like that. But when there's drinking and stuff involved too, then that becomes a whole other story. For me, we know each other very well. And, I don't wear me being a plastic surgeon on my sleeve when I'm out in public and with friends and stuff. Like, it's not. And so for me, it's not something that I don't get asked that much. I think part of it is because I'm not somebody who's, there are people who are in our field who are like plastic surgery obsessed. Like they live, eat, and breathe plastic surgery. And for me, I do because I find the field fascinating and I educate myself and stuff like that. But it's not like, oh my God, I got to try all the latest things. Like, it's not that. It's like, I look at it as this is my profession, and I am obsessed with my profession because that's, what I do. But I'm not like an enthusiast where it's like, I want to try all the latest filler. I want to try all the latest injections. I want to get all this stuff done. Like, that's not me. And I think, that's something, and I don't want to put that out there because I've seen doctors who do that, and it's obnoxious.
It is obnoxious. And
Yeah.
it's, I have patients that ask me all the time, there are things that people come and ask me about. Have you seen the newest this, the latest this? I haven't even heard of it yet. But you've got someone promoting it on social media and the dermatologist,
Well, a
the
lot of
plastic
it's
surgeon,
BS
that's all,
too.
just jumping on the bandwagon, I think probably for a little bit of fame and for media attention as well. And just to get people in the door. But until something's proven to work, and I've tried it on myself,
So you try everything before you do it on a patient?
everything.
Really?
Everything. I do not own a
Interesting.
laser in my office, a procedure. I don't do any
Good for
fillers or
you.
Botox, all of it on myself first.
I guess I think about what I've done pretty much everything in the office too. Yeah. I mean, cause I can't think of anything that I haven't necessarily.
Breast implants.
I haven't done Miradry on my armpits yet.
You haven't
but
following
at
up
some
on
point,
you haven't
I'm
done
gonna do
Steve-O
that.
breast implants like
I
the
don't know.
last.
Well, I'm not talking surgery. I'm talking like non-invasive or injections.
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't done filler on myself. But I don't feel the need yet, but maybe someday. But
Yeah.
all right, last topic. I think that's a big topic nowadays. And we were discussing a little bit earlier, Threadlifts.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Threadlifts? This is a hot topic right now. A lot of celebrities are having it done. A lot of them are claiming that they haven't, but it's pretty obvious that they've had. People are doing threads all the way from getting fox eye lifts with threads to getting threads in noses, threads to elevate the neckline. What have your experience been with threads?
I love the idea of it. I truly do. I love how many patients come into your office and just they pull their face and their neck, they pull. And if we had something to mimic doing that wasn't surgical, I mean, it would be fantastic. And I would do it on myself, prior to needing surgery or whatever. I tried thread lifting once. I had, twice actually. I had the reps come into my office and they let you practice with their materials. I had several patients I tried it on. And it looked great when I first did it. You first do it, and then a week later or 2 weeks later, they had fallen.
Yeah.
On one scenario, one side had fallen and not the other. And I was under the tutelage and the guidance of the physician that came to train me. And then I've seen some patients in follow-up, that I haven't done, that have gotten thread lifting elsewhere, that come in and they sometimes have little puckering and they have some unevenness, and that's kind of hard to fix once those threads are in there. They do slowly dissolve over time. But so I'm waiting. I had mentioned to you before, I really would love to incorporate thread lifting, but I'm waiting for a product that lasts and works and is possibly, one you can alter if something kind of goes wrong, which is why I like the hyaluronic acid fillers, because we can, you can dissolve them. And so if you have a complication, but with the thread lifts, you can't, as that I know of. Have you tried the thread lifts at all? I mean,
No, but I mean, if people followed me for a while, they know I've got pretty strong feelings on threads. So the idea of threadless, for all of you who are watching and listening, is that these originated with the barbed sutures. So, when we went through our training, when did you finish your training?
2004.
Okay, yeah. So I finished the same thing.
20 years ago.
When we went through our training, basically all we had in sutures were sutures that were either smooth, like nylon sutures, or braided sutures, like Vicryl, where basically you take smooth sutures and you kind of braid them together like you're braiding hair. And what they decided is somebody at some point said, hey, what if we take this smooth suture and we cut little barbs into it, basically making tiny little cuts and nicks into it. And then if you run that underneath the skin, those little barbs, little nicks in the suture will actually then adhere or kind of connect or pull on the tissues. And if you run it underneath the skin, you can make it look as if things are lifted. So the idea was a good idea, because it's like, yeah, you can pull it underneath and all of a sudden you do look and see that the anatomy changes. But the problem is that these sutures, these little barbs in the sutures, are not powerful enough to truly change a facial anatomy.
Right.
And so then what happens is that they eventually cheese wire through, meaning those tissues eventually just will technically, on a very small level, tear through where those barbs are and eventually go back to where they were, because our anatomy is kind of, it's not just skin and fat, but it's muscles, it's ligaments, it's connective tissues, it's connections to bones. And so can taking a suture with tiny little nicks in it truly change the anatomy of your face? And I just don't believe that it can. And when you look at studies, the initial ones came out, you may remember back in the mid 2000s, there were a lot of doctors who were doing threadless. That's when they first came out. And people were like, oh, non-surgical facelift and this and that. And there was a guy, plastic surgeon out, I think in like Singapore, named Waffles Wu. Have you heard of Waffles Wu?
No, it's a great name.
So yeah, Waffles Wu was like the king of these Threadlifts. And he wrote all these papers on it, gave all these lectures, and his results lasted about 6 to 12 months.
Wow.
And that's it. And he was like the best. And the problem back then was these sutures were made of nylon. They were permanent sutures. And so I would see patients come in my office a year, 2 years later, and they're like, what is this sticking out of my face? And it's like part of a thread from a Threadlift. Yet their results are like years gone, but there's still these threads sticking out. And so in like the late 2000s, most doctors abandoned threads and you didn't hear anything about them. And so like a lot of things that happen, like one of the things we've seen in my field and plastic surgery are textured implants. Like people realize, oh, those don't work very well. And then they abandon them. And then time goes by and a new generation of doctors comes around. They're like, I saw this rep show me how I could put this barbed suture underneath the skin and do a non-surgical facelift. It's amazing. Nobody's ever done it before. And they don't look at the research from before saying that it doesn't work. And so now they start doing it again. Now the benefit now is these sutures are absorbable. They're dissolvable, which is great because you're not going to get long-term stitches sticking out of your face. And I think you can get a reasonable potential improvement for a few months. But my concern is that I know that there are a lot of doctors who aren't being honest with their patients and saying, hey, you know what? This is going to cost you $4,000.
Right.
And 6 months from now, you're going to look the same.
Yep.
Are you okay with that?
Yep.
Instead, they, promise, oh, it's going to look great. It's going to look great. And then you do it. And then a year later, a patient comes to see me. They're like, I want a facelift. I had Threadlifts, spent all this money. And then it was gone like 6 months later.
They're expensive. They're expensive to purchase. And obviously then that translates to the patient.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. Or like, you're going to spend all this money and, one side of your face may fall before the others, and that's not good.
So yeah, I mean, the idea of it, when you think about like anything that's easy, like, hey, I'm all for that. I think it's just being honest with patients and being like, look, you're not going to get more than 6 months out of you. Absolute longest, maybe a year. There was a paper that was published in our aesthetic surgery journal maybe a year ago, and they showed 6 months was kind of what they were seeing at the max.
Yeah.
And this was 6 months ago. So it's not like, it's an old paper that now things are so much better. They're not. Like they don't appear to be, at least to me. So
I got a 2-week improvement. I think was the maximum that I got in the 10 patients that I did.
For me, I think it's like, if you've got if you won the lottery, you got a ton of money to spend and you want to try doing threads, I don't think it's going to be harmful necessarily. Right. But I hope that your doctor is honest with you of like, hey, 6 months from now, you're probably not going to see anything from this, and if that's what you want to do, then hey, by all means. I think that there are some celebrities where you wonder, did they have a fox eye lift and their threads and they look like that for a while. And then now you look at them like, oh, I just saw them do a get ready with me and they don't look fox-eyed at all.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's probably because they had threads.
They had threads.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course.
Can you let our audience know where they can find you?
Yep. They can find me at nw-derm.com, which is our website. It's called Northwest Dermatology Group. That's where they can find me online. And then also our Instagram handle.
Yeah. Handle.
I don't know what you call it. Our Instagram. Yeah, it's called Northwest Derm _ Covet Med Spa. I know it's a little long, but you can find us there.
We'll put a link in the caption of the show notes and of this video. So
thank you for having me. I enjoy doing this.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We'll be back in about another month or so for another Hot Topics episode. And once again, if you've been enjoying this podcast, if you could leave a rating or review on iTunes or Spotify, it definitely helps me spread the word. Otherwise, my name is Dr. Anthony Youn. This is the Dr. Youn Show. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And as always, remember to eat real food, use clean skincare, and auto-juvenate before you operate.